Let's do one more example of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. In this example, I've labeled the hypotenuse with 12. So we start out by saying across from 30 is n, across from 60 is n times the square root of 3, and across from 90 is 2n. This time I'm going to use the equation 12 is equal to 2n to solve for n. Go ahead and try that on your own. If you did it correctly, you should have divided by 2 on both sides, so that on the right side the 2's cancel out, and you're left with 6 is equal to n. After we found n, then we want to take it and plug it back in to find x and y. So y is just equal to 6, and x is equal to 6 times the square root of 3. Let's look at an example for a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay. So if you recall from the beginning of the notes, across from the 45-degree angles, we want to label those with n. Across from the 90-degree angle, we want to label it with n times the square root of 2. In this particular problem, we don't have anything to solve for. We already know what n is, so all we need to do is take it and plug it in. So x is equal to 8, and y is equal to 8 times the square root of 2. We have 2 more examples to look at. Here's another 45, 45, 90 triangle, but now I've labeled the hypotenuse with 6 times the square root of 2. Across from the 45-degree angle should be n, and across from the 90-degree angle is n times the square root of 2. In this problem, we want to use 6 times the square root of 2 is equal to n times the square root of 2 to solve for n. To do that, I'm going to divide by the square root of 2 on both sides. This makes our square root 2's cancel out, and we're left with 6 is equal to n. The last thing that we need to do is take it and plug it back in. So y is equal to 6, and x is equal to 6. Okay, our last example. Here we have a square. And what I've drawn is the diagonal of the square. Do you think that the diagonal of a square would create a 30, 60, 90 triangle or a 45, 45, 90 triangle? If you answered 45, 45, 90, you are correct. What you will need to recognize in the future is that if you ever see a picture like the one I've drawn and there aren't angles labeled, you have to be able to recognize that the diagonal of a square will always create 2 45, 45, 90 triangles. Now I'm going to label the diagonal with 8 times the square root of 2, and I want to know what one side is equal to. Okay, across from the 45-degree angle should be n. Across from my 90-degree angle should be n times the square root of 2. I'm going to use the diagonal to solve for n, which I will do off to the side. I have the equation 8 times the square root of 2 is equal to n times the square root of 2. To solve that for n, I want to divide by the square root of 2 on both sides, which makes these cancel out, and I'm left with 8 is equal to n. Back on my picture, that means that x is equal to 8. Let's take it one step further and solve for perimeter. If one side of the square is equal to 8, what would you do to find the perimeter of the square? Well, you could say, well, okay, if one side is 8, I know that they're all going to be 8, so I can do 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, and that will give you 32. Or, since one side is 8 and we know that we have 4 sides in a square, we can just multiply by 4. So perimeter is equal to 8 times 4, which is equal to 32.